Do you want to sell more books, but things have changed for you? Do you need to do a virtual launch? Well, in today's episode, I'm going to run through with you what I did for my virtual launch. So with COVID-19, we did the very last book launch that I think was legally allowed in South Africa. But I had already scheduled my second book to come out in November 2020, and I was not prepared to budge on that date. This means that I had to do a virtual launch. Now, I have to tell you, I was kind of terrified. I'd never done a virtual launch beforehand, and I like to be prepared for the virtual launch or for any project that I did. So the first thing that I did is I ran to my default setting, which is research. And I scrounged on YouTube a whole bunch of videos on how to do an event, a virtual event. Now, there were a lot of authors that I found that put together a virtual event, and what was interesting about that exercise is that everyone was just going for it the first time around and sharing their experiences. So I took a lot of notes from that section. However, I did find someone who had organized virtual launches for quite some time before COVID-19 hit. And I found that she was really, really helpful. And here are some of the main key things that I learned from this exercise. Number one, she said to us that book sales at an event are much easier than book sales at a virtual event. And the reason for that is that at a physical event, people have got a point of sale that they can go to during the breaks, during the event, and it won't disturb the event too much. Whereas with a virtual event, very often in order to do purchases, someone has to leave the event to make the purchases. And that's not what you want with your virtual launch. You actually want to have engagement. So the tip that I got from her was to find a way to have people pre-registered for the event, or alternatively send their contact details during the event. What I decided to do is to use a product called Eventbrite. Now, Eventbrite has got a free platform and they have got a paid for platform. And because my target is authors who might be starting out with their career and they don't have a lot of money available for a launch, I wanted to use as many free options as possible. So I chose the Eventbrite free option. Now, what can you do on the Eventbrite free option? Well, you can add graphics. So I added a picture of myself for the event. You can add a whole bunch of text and also prizes, information that's on there. And in order for people to register for the event, they have to add their email address, which means I now have the list of emails for the people who were at the event. What she also said is have a follow-up system, a landing page that when you email the people who were at the event, they can be directed to the link where they can purchase your book. So I registered with Eventbrite. I added on my graphics. I had a way of collecting the email addresses, and I had follow-up emails. I went on to MailChimp. MailChimp is an email platform that is for free, and I launched a sequence of events, which meant that when I had the email address and I loaded the person onto the email, that person would automatically get an email thanking them for registering for the event. The next thing you can do on Eventbrite is you can link it to a Zoom account. And that means that when the Zoom message starts, everyone who registered for Eventbrite will be notified that it's happening. Eventbrite sends reminder emails ahead of time. So that's absolutely fantastic because it takes a little bit of the glitch out for you. Then besides the emails that Eventbrite is sending out, you need to let people know about the launch in advance. So with Eventbrite, you can do a link which you can put onto social media, and you can copy the link. So what I did is I put it onto social media. I then got hold of a couple of people that I know who have been associated with authors who did launches, and I asked them for advice. What did they find out? And I was told that you needed to let people know well in advance, preferably at least a month beforehand. So I started posting onto social media. Those were the main tips that I learned from the company that does virtual launches for a living. They've been doing it for over 7 years. I then went onto author platforms and I researched what other authors were doing. And these were the key things that I used in my launch. Number one, get a team to help you share the function on the day. So what that means is that ours was streamed to Facebook. I then had a team of people who went onto Facebook and then shared the event onto their Facebook pages, which means their friends, their guests would be able to get onto the event. That was very, very important because it gained momentum and I got a lot of traction from that. The next thing that I discovered is that when you are running with Zoom, you have a free option and a paid option. And like I said, I wanted to look at all the free options that I could get to teach authors how to run a free event. Now, I had to cheat a little bit in my free option. What I did is I moved from free to borrowed. I have a very special friend, Sunil, who does social media training, and he had a Zoom version that would allow us to stream. So I got him to host the function and then to stream to my Facebook page. And then all of my friends who were part of my launch team, they could share from there. So that was a borrowed option. So find out if you've got someone that you know who's got a Zoom account that you can borrow to do the streaming, because it does make a difference. Right, the next thing was prizes. I got hold of a couple of authors that I know, and I asked them if they would be able to assist with sponsorship for the event. And we got a lot of generosity. I had Denise Riddle, who sent us through a couple of copies of her book. Then we had Tammy, who designed the Christmas card. There were just oodles of people, and I'm not going to mention everyone by name, but and then Tony Cox was incredibly helpful in also setting things up. But basically that gave us a couple of free things to hand out and to gain some excitement for the event, and then also to get people to pay attention to what I was saying because they knew that they were going to get a prize from there. Okay, so on the event, well, one of the things that they also said is that don't let your first event be your first event. So what we did is we got Sunil to do a live stream of a test event. And we prepared everyone so that if people came onto the event while we were streaming, we would say, this is a practice run, and don't worry, the launch is still going to happen. We're just testing it out. I'm very, very glad we did that, because a lot of our team members didn't really understand the tech. They didn't know how to do a watch party. And by doing that practice run, it really helped to prepare us. Now, what can go wrong? I'm going to chat about the things that went wrong for the function and how we overcame those challenges. Our interviewer, Jan, She was absolutely fantastic. She gave us some excellent tips ahead of time, and we did a practice run with her. However, there were certain things that we didn't practice. So we didn't actually practice exactly what was going to happen and when it was going to happen. We had to do that beforehand, and then when it came to the prizes, we hadn't practiced that. So what will happen on Zoom is that someone has to look at who is answering the questions, and they've got to take a note of everyone who answered the questions correctly. We didn't practice that in advance, and so there was a little bit of a muddle on who is going to be taking the prizes, and we got like one person that went missing, so I have to watch the whole Zoom all over again to be able to find our missing prize winner. So I would say that if you're going to practice the whole thing. Have an agenda in advance and practice the whole thing. It doesn't mean that you have to say every single thing and every single question that you're going to have, but what you do need to do is you need to say, right, opening slot, we're going to speak about opening. What's next? We're going to be doing the reading. What's next? We're going to do the prizes. Then who's going to ask the questions? We only decided that on the day. Big tip number 2. We did sign in advance. That was a really good suggestion. However, we didn't have a cue for when we were actually live. We didn't practice that. So what did Author Kim do? She went to the bathroom, she got some tissue paper, and she started blowing her nose during the live event. So our event was scheduled to start at 6:30. We logged in 10 minutes early just that we can make sure everything was working, and then Kim, the author, was blowing her nose on Facebook for everyone to see. Just keeping it real over here. So it was definitely something that if I would do it again, I definitely wouldn't do that. Another tip. I did hear that you have to plan for what can go wrong on the day. And I believed that we had planned for what could go wrong, but little did I know I hadn't planned completely. Now, luckily, I had a Zoom prepared at 10 o'clock that morning. It was an interview with someone who wanted to chat to me about the book launch. And I have Zoom on the computer. I checked if there would be any load shedding on the day. For those of you who are not from South Africa, that is when we have power outages because our infrastructure is a little bit shaky at the moment and we don't really have enough power for the entire country. So there are times when our service provider schedules that there will be power outages. So I was okay with that. That was sorted out. However, I didn't account for the fact that there might be a power fault. So we had a power fault, and thank the lucky stars that the power fault happened in the morning before my first Zoom, which was not part of my book launch. I then realized that I didn't have Zoom on my phone. I also didn't have enough space on my phone for Zoom. So I spent a large portion of the morning deleting every single conceivable thing I could find on my phone to make space for Zoom. I then downloaded the Zoom. I had no idea how to set it up on my phone, nothing. And luckily, my daughter, who is a little bit more tech savvy than me, she came through in the morning, and so we were able to practice. Now, because it's a cell phone, I've been on a lot of Zooms where people speak on their cell phone and they look a little bit crazy. So what we had done in advance is my husband and I watched a whole bunch of YouTube videos on how to look good on Zoom. And one of the ladies said, if you have a cell phone, you can put it into a cup on top of a box so that the camera is looking down at you. So you are not looking down on people, you're looking at the camera or slightly up, okay? So she said, if you've got one of those pop sockets that fit at the back of your phone, you can take that and put it into the mug, and then that will work perfectly. But we didn't have a pop socket. Luckily, I had watched that video in advance. So what I did is I took a can, I shoved it full of toilet paper, And I positioned the phone in the box slightly up there. Our Zoom was running in the evening, and like I said, we had a power failure. So because we had the power failure, we didn't have light. My husband decorated the room in advance for us with swords, which we got from the Blade Lady. It was going to be beautiful. We couldn't do that. But what he did do is he got a whole bunch of candles, he put it around, and the ambience was very beautiful. The lighting was softer, so it actually made me look better. And everyone was like, wow, we love the ambience of your Zoom. And I'm like, you have no idea. We have no power. The other thing that happened is because I put the cell phone into the can, the sound wasn't coming out. So every time my interviewer asked a question, I could not hear a thing. Luckily, my daughter was with me. She was running Zoom. So when there were questions, she would give me the cell phone and I would listen very intently to what the messages were. Tricky part with that is that she couldn't always see what people were saying on the Zoom, and she was supposed to collect all of the names. So it was kind of a comedy of errors, but the energy was good. We had a lot of fun, and we just kind of rolled with the flow. So in summary, what are the things that you need to do in terms of your launch? Number one, let people know in advance. Number two, have a team. Number three, have a backup plan in case there are tech issues. Have Zoom on your phone. Have a way of communicating with people afterwards, after the event, so that you can actually gain traction. Get some giveaways, some prizes. Oh, and then try and get yourself a courier sponsor, because now I've got to send all of these prizes out. So that's just a little hint for at the end. Find out how to look good on Zoom. There's a lot of material out there that can make your lighting look better, can make your face look better, can make you more engaged, where to look at the camera, all of those kinds of things we researched in advance. But the most important thing is just to have fun and to let people know in advance what is happening, because it's really going to help you. Now, one little glitch that I had never anticipated with Eventbrite, I had to open up the meeting. So that meant that everyone who registered with Eventbrite was not able to get into the meeting. However, what I had done, because I knew that there was a power failure in the morning, is I sent out the Zoom link to a lot of people that I knew had been invited to the event. Now, I couldn't get onto my email. I couldn't get onto my computer. My laptop battery is not really that great, and so it only works when the computer is plugged in. So there's a lot of things that I missed. I was getting WhatsApp messages from people saying, I can't get in, I can't get in. But because I had sent the Zoom link independently in advance to a couple of people, the majority of people who registered actually did attend the event. And so I'm very grateful for that. So the big thing is just go out there and have fun. Make sure people know about your event in advance. We really had a lot of good energy. I would definitely do it again. I would definitely follow the same steps that I did again, but this time I would have an agenda in place, and I would prep a little bit more from how to handle problems. I think that virtual book launches are a wonderful way to connect with people, to bring people together, people that would never have attended. I mean, my friend Kerry from Cape Town attended, my friend Karen from Port Elizabeth attended, my parents are in Port Elizabeth. They went to go and see my friend Patty. They went to go see my friend Patty, and then they signed on with her, and that was fantastic. So they wouldn't have been able to attend without that, because in lockdown, there's no way that they would be able to move from Port Elizabeth up to Johannesburg. It's a 1,200 kilometer trip. So It really just brings a whole bunch of different people in it. I was speaking to Rashida, another author who I did an interview with quite recently, who also had a virtual event, and she agreed that there were some people that attended the virtual event. They never attended any of her physical launches. So just have realistic expectations on who is going to attend, because some people are very scared of tech. They don't like the whole Zoom thing. It's a very specific kind of person that is willing to embrace that kind of technology. So if you've got any questions, please pop them down into the comment section. And if you have got any suggestions for other videos, please let me know and I will gladly do a video on that. And please remember to subscribe so that we can just keep the channel going. Thanks so much for watching, and you have a stunning day. Go out there and write more books and sell more books.